Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fierce and Flowing podcast. I am Monique Renee, and I cannot believe that we are on episode 40 something. I think it's like 45. I had a dream of creating this podcast um and I never imagined that I would even get close to 50. So here we are on year 3 of this podcast, and I'm so delighted to have a wonderful guest today. Michelle Suarez, and she also happens to be one of my childhood friends. I have so many wonderful friends that I have grown up with, that I've gone to college with, multiple, schools, and just in life, in, working in various different jobs. And so many of these women and the guests that I have on this podcast just have great stories for everyday people, because we are everyday people, right? And we all have our unique stories that can support you out there who may need a little bit of guidance on your journey of growing and developing and evolving to become the person that you want to become and to have the life of your dreams. So let me introduce Michelle, and we'll get talking with her today. So Michelle is an attorney and certified coach specializing in legal consulting and coaching for women. She helps women navigate the divorce process or strengthen their marriages by offering expert advice, document review, and personalized strategies to gain the knowledge and confidence needed for informed decision making and healthier relationships. And it's so needed today. Michelle, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me, Monique.
Of
And yes,
course.
it's great to be here. And we've known each other for a long time. So I'm glad
Yeah.
to be able to share this with you.
Of course, of course. One of the reasons why I love working with women so much is because um, over the years, I feel that women have kind of left behind this idea of like cattiness and competition, and really more and more, communities of women are coming together to support each other, in what they're going through in their lives, and to, to raise each other up. And it's been such a joy, reconnecting with you and our other friends from our school days, and not only sharing memories, but just again tuning into what each and every one of us is going through and how we can continue to be there for each other. So thank you for being that one of those persons in my life as well. And so, as you know, I know you've watched some of these podcasts. The first question that we jump into is our fierce moment, right? And I believe we have many fierce moments in our lives, but certain of those moments tend to kind of rise to the surface, right? The ones that really break us out of our shell, the ones that come with a lot of pain, a lot of chaos, maybe situations that we never really wanted to see ourselves in, or experience. And but they make us into the person we are today, right? And for many of us, like you and I, some of these situations end up becoming ways that we ourselves help women and help others going through the same situations that we went through. So I would love for you to share one of your fierce moments with everyone today.
Sure. My fierce moment started when I went through my divorce. It was a long-term marriage, and we had been together, raised our children, or were raising our kids. And divorce is hard, and divorce changes. The path through divorce is very difficult, and it changes everything in your life, right? You're not only your life, his
Yeah.
life, your children's life, everything. It's as amicable or as nice as the best case scenario, it's still so challenging. So as I was navigating through my own divorce, my own emotions, my own legal issues, right? And the emotions of my children, my ex, because it was amicable, we did get along. So that part, it was hard, going through those feelings.
Yeah.
And then looking at divorce, which is the legal side of it, is very transactional,
Yeah.
has to be approached as a business, because when you have a lot of the emotions, it just blurs everything up, and it just becomes 1,000 times more difficult to even make decisions, right, in the transactional part. So as I was going through my divorce, I thought, and I didn't think anything out of it at the time. I'm like, how do women do this that are going through this, that are not attorneys, that are not professionals, sometimes don't have the emotional support that I
Right,
had with friends like you and other friends of mine, other good friends of mine that I can pick up the phone and call quickly and say, hey, I need you to answer this question real quick on my divorce. It was a legal question or
right.
accounting question, whatever it was. And then the emotional support. And I was like, how in the world do women get through this? Women and men, I'm going to say women
Absolutely.
mostly because that's
Right.
who I work with, but it's very hard for both parties, right?
Yeah.
And so soon after, as I was getting through it and we were, already done with the harder part of the negotiations and we're done, I thought, you know what? That kept resonating with me. And how do I put this? How can I help these women? What was I telling me? What was going on with that? So I started to shift my practice in hopefully to be a fierce
Yes.
person advocate for these women and help them, kind of separate the emotional side, which I do
Yeah.
so, a lot of divorce coaching and marriage coaching. Um,
Right.
so support them, guide them with their ultimate goals in mind, while also helping them have a strategy, guidance, getting through the transactional side of the divorce.
Right.
So,
It's a gift. I have to say that, having gone through a divorce myself, um, I was blessed that I had a friend, one of my best friends, who is an attorney and who did a lot of divorces. And honestly, if it wasn't for her, I know, of course, I would have found an attorney, right?
right,
But you are in a tunnel. It is just tunnel vision. Um, it's almost hard to even hear yourself, to even hear your own thoughts, to know where to begin, to know what to do. I know that for me, it was just about survival, surviving so that I can continue to work and make a living, continue to be there for my children, support them because they had questions, even be there for the family members who were trying to figure out what was going on, let alone what I was going through, right? And um, and without that guidance, right? And because she was a friend, right? So she kind of
right,
acted like a little bit of a therapist, a little bit of a coach, an attorney for sure. She would snap me into like out of the emotions and in back into my body, into my presence and say, listen to me. Right now, this is the only thing I want you to think of. And this is the only thing that I want you to do. I don't want you to think of anything else. Just do this for me because you're doing it for yourself, and then we're going to move on to the next step, right? And I do think of all of those women, and again, and men as well, who are caught in a situation where they have no idea where to go for help. They're not even sure who to trust, right? Because I think with this type of field, there's a lot of mistrust with attorneys. Unfortunately, even though there are so many good-hearted, compassionate, honest attorneys out there that really want the best for both parties and the families, it is so difficult to trust because there's so much money involved, right? And so many transactions, like you said. I'm curious, Michelle, what, even though you are an attorney and you kind of knew how to navigate the legal part of it for yourself, what did you find for you was the most difficult part of the process? Even though had the checklist, you knew what you needed to do first, second, and third. And I'm assuming you also had an attorney to support you.
yes, I had hired my own
You
attorney.
had hired your own
So,
attorney.
yes.
What for you was still the most difficult part, even though you knew more than most of us do going into a divorce?
I think the most difficult part is the fear of the unknown, really,
Mm,
because even if we know, the outcome is always very scary because you don't know when you're going through it. It's just emotional. I think emotionally is the most difficult side for me because the the divorce component, I did have my attorney. Um, and I did have, you know what, all of it is so difficult,
yeah,
to be honest. It's even the transactional part of it is horrible because here you are trying to, it's the rest of your life, you're gonna be by yourself, and there's so many, you have the kids.
yeah,
Um, so you're just, it's the entire divorce, all of it, I think there's nothing positive about it when
Yeah,
you're going through it. And emotionally, you're just, and it doesn't matter whether you wanted the divorce or didn't want the divorce.
right.
It's to the heart of everything you've known. And I don't think anyone walks into a marriage thinking, oh, you might get divorced. At least I don't think
Yeah.
generally most people do. So I think you see it as a, oh my God, we couldn't work out, or some sense of failure at some point, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's a lot of components, emotional and the transactional side, the business side of it.
Hmm.
Um, which, let's say if you have a house, what are you gonna do with the house, and how do you split
Right.
assets, and how do you child support, alimony, and all the other issues that come up. So I think all of it, I can't pinpoint one thing because I think it's all overwhelming. It's all at once.
Yeah.
And I think even though it's a longer process, that process, the feelings are that for a long time. And I think the biggest fear is the unknown, what's coming. So, and how am I going to end up?
Yeah.
Even though you kind of know how, because that's what I try to do with my clients is try to get, which I was able to do with myself, was best case scenario, worst case scenario. So you have realistic views, but still, even though you have that, let's say you're going to get the best case scenario, you're still worried because your life is changing forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where I think coaching comes, is so very, very helpful, right? We hire coaches for all sorts of things, for our businesses, for our health and wellness, for, career transition, retirement, finances. And
Yes.
so why would it be weird to hire a coach to actually support us, right? Through the emotional and the future, right? Development of who we are and who we're going to be and how we're going to live our lives, post divorce. So,
Right.
um, I know that for me, when I went through it, I didn't even start thinking about what was next. It was literally about like be in the moment. Let me just get through today and tomorrow. And it felt
Yes.
that way for well over a year before I could even truly step into a place where I could take a deep breath, where I could be like, okay, how, what is my life going to look like now? Right? What are you finding in coaching with these women that is really supporting them in this, temporary space, which is what it
I
is.
love I must tell you, I love the coaching part. There are
Mhm.
many great attorneys. There are a lot of them that are not so
Yes,
great. And I do have some of those clients come and ask me, to work with me because they don't really trust their attorneys, which I always say, if you're not trusting your attorney, you might want to take a step back,
right,
rethink it, because it's such a emotional process. There are good attorneys, and this is where a divorce coach is very helpful, I think, in many cases. You're able to sit with someone, and for your emotional side, and what I bring to the table is that I am a lawyer, so I have all these years of experience. So I look at their situation globally, so I can help them. I mean, they're gonna have their attorney to do the legal and, that portion
right.
of it. It's, I step out of the box and I sit with them, and it's kind of hold handing. And I help them think and come to a space where we tackle issues one at a time,
Hmm.
where if a client has, like, every day you have like 10 things work that you're worried about.
Yeah,
So we sit down and we go over the main two that we can really tackle, and that are really, really top of the list at the moment. So it's great to see when they can step back and say, okay, this is being taken care of. We're working together,
right.
and they're going to make the ultimate decision. But I help them come to a place, um, like they say, like cold space on their own, and they can really figure out best strategy for them at that moment. And just go through the emotions, get past the emotions, or handle or breathe into their emotions,
Yeah,
and then take the next step. And all with a strategy and guidance for them.
yeah,
So they don't feel alone, and they're not confused anymore. And they're like, okay, we can get through this. Okay, we got this. And then we get to the next items. So that part is, I love that. I love to see my clients coming out
hmm,
in a much better position and being able to handle it, and actually compartmentalizing the
right.
emotional with the transactional.
Yes.
So it's really wonderful for me to see and actually help people. Like you said, everybody has coaches for different things,
Yeah.
and the value of a coach is is huge, I think, in all and
Absolutely. I think this is one of the, and we spoke about it briefly before we jumped on this podcast, is the idea that there's such a negative connotation to divorce, right? Or separating, that I can see how a woman and or a man would not want to talk to anybody about it. They don't want to put it out there into the universe. They don't want to, they want to keep it all in. Like, I'm just gonna go through this on my own because I don't want the world to know what I'm going through, right? Why do you think there's such a negative connotation?
it's such a stigma. It's like, and not for us because you're divorced, I'm divorced, and I think,
Mhm.
and I know plenty of people that are divorced and remarried or whatever the case may be. It's just, I think, a feeling of when you're going through it, maybe a fear of failure.
Mhm.
I wasn't able to keep it together, whatever it is. My friend groups, they're going to change because
Right,
we are friends with a lot of our, as a couple, we're
right. Couple
friends with other
friends.
couples.
Yes,
And now you become the divorced, or you seem to think everybody else's life is great. So you don't want
right.
to talk about your divorce maybe.
Mm.
And
The
women,
embarrassment, the shame.
yeah, I think people still have that.
Yeah,
And especially in our community. So a lot of people don't want to talk about it. They want to be, I think they want to go through their feelings first sometimes too.
sure.
They're not even sure.
Yeah.
And I've had clients like that.
They
And
don't
it's
know how
like,
to put words to it. They don't even know how to explain what they're going through.
right. And many times they don't necessarily want a divorce.
Right,
So my clients, it's funny, they don't want a divorce. And they don't end up getting divorced. We end up working through other avenues of
right.
communication. So I coach them to look at their marriage in a different light or things
Yeah.
that he does. You know what I mean? So
I
it's
love it. So it's not that the only people who come to you for support are people going through a divorce,
no,
right?
absolutely not.
So you're also working with women who are thinking that they may need a divorce, or maybe their spouse is starting to talk about
Right.
maybe we shouldn't be together.
Yes.
So it's working on it before it gets to that
Right.
place.
Which let me tell you, after a lot of um certifications,
Mhm.
after all this self-help and reading and all these, I think so many marriages, not all of them, of course, because it always takes two people, but I
Right.
think so many marriages, if they had certain tools of communication and
Yes.
certain that honestly I didn't know about them before when I
Yeah.
was married because people don't talk about it, you know,
Right.
or our world is just after many years of marriage, you're like, oh, that's just the way it is, we're
Right.
doing this. So, but it's incredible. I have come to the realization that if the two people want to make it work, there's a lot of things that can be done.
Hmm.
There's things they can read. There's so much. So I put all that
Exercises.
stuff out there for them too, and
Yeah.
I'm coaching them. So again, there's a lot to do. In a marriage, there's a lot of work. It just depends how much you want to put in.
Right.
Um, and so yeah, I help women do that. And another thing that I also, Monique, love that I do is if you're not thinking of divorce and you're,
Right.
let's say, late 30s, 40s, 50s, however old you are, but you stopped working 5, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever number, and now your kids are a little bit older, and I think we tend to get a little nervous and
Yeah.
say, oh my God, I'm not working and I'm getting to this age and I know what's going on. And he's done the finances and everything, which is perfectly fine. So it's not to say they don't do that.
Right.
But I've had clients that have hired me and we've sat down and I've given them certain tools, certain things that they need to put together. Just so my client, not with a
Right.
spouse. And to see how an individual, a woman becomes financially, they knew finances, but now they know even more. They're
Right.
thinking retirement, and now they even know more. And to see my clients move forward based on what we've done
Yes,
together,
how
the
you've
work we've done
prepared them.
together.
This is a huge topic, and I actually had a dear friend who went through this, and her husband handled all of the finances. There was a lot of trust in the relationship, and when he passed, what she discovered was a nightmare, a
Yeah.
nightmare. Um, and won't go into details, but basically had no control over any of the assets of, she was completely blindsided, and I can't imagine what that would feel like to be in a marriage where, unfortunately they are leaning towards, divorce, or maybe a spouse passes away, to not understand the true picture of the finances behind the marriage.
And people think, oh my God, I should have known. I have a lot of clients that are like, I should know this. And I'm like, no, because wait, that's our typical roles. You get married, he
Right.
stays working, he does the finances, and you stay with all the complex issue with the kids and the tutoring and the picking up or whatever,
Right.
part-time, whatever. So we become busy and the days go and he's taking care of that and things are flowing, right? So there's no need,
Right.
or you don't think there's a need. But in today's world where everything's changed as far as laws, divorce laws
Yep.
and the rights of women and a lot more women are working too. So
Yes.
I think it's a difficult conversation to have with your spouse, the finances,
Yeah.
but you have no idea. I think a lot of men will appreciate their wives getting involved in this
Right. Right. And maybe
because
they don't
the
want
burden falls on them.
the burden falls on them.
So now when she knows and she's able to set aside certain things, that kind of helps, the
Yeah.
marriage. Okay, you're going to take care of certain things. Maybe they do 50-50 or,
Right.
it doesn't say there's so many ways to work it, right? But it's actually being able to open up their eyes to everything that's out there that maybe their spouse didn't know either. You know what I mean? It's not
Right.
just them.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so they're actually, funding retirement accounts or anything, creating trust. So I
Yeah.
help them put that all together. Um, I actually refer them to financial planners, so
Right.
they can go. I work with different professionals, of
Yeah.
course, because I'm not a financial planner. So, but I open their eyes and we set up a whole,
Yeah. You give them the full picture, right? I
yes.
love that, and there's no reason why. I think the way things happened in the past, right? There's a transition of industries, happening right now, and people are really niching, which I think helps, right? So
Mhm.
that I don't, and part of the mistrust is how can one person help me with everything that I need when I'm going through something like this, whether my marriage is falling apart or whether I'm actually going through a divorce and I have no idea what to do. How can one person really help me with everything that I need to look at, right?
Right.
Emotions, my career trajectory, being on my own, understanding the finances, understanding retirement. Um, there's just so much there. And then the black and white of just getting the legal process, right? And mediating. And I know there's so many things that you go through when you go through a divorce, but it really is kind of unrealistic that the attorney you choose is the right person to handle all of that, right?
Well,
And I think that
attorneys
that's the
don't,
way it's kind of been done in the past.
well, I think attorneys can handle the emotional side. They're actually working on your case or working on, so they
Yeah,
help you a little, with your emotions a little bit, but it's not really what they're meant to do.
it's not what they're meant to do.
Um,
Yeah,
and they have a lot of cases and they have to deal with the opposite, the
yeah,
other side, the attorney on the other side. So it's a lot. They don't have the space or the time to really do that.
yeah,
And honestly, if you're going to sit there and give your attorney all the emotional and the legal, your bills are going to be huge.
right.
So
No,
I
they
don't think
will,
it's,
right? Because they're billing you by the hour.
yes.
Gosh.
So I think it becomes I mean, it's
Yeah,
a hard thing to do. They're not. So that's why I really liked what I started to do.
yeah.
It's a niche and it's getting in there
It
and
also
really
helps you to
helping.
be the best at what you're doing,
Yes, and I
right?
love it.
Really
I love it.
focusing, yeah,
Yes,
on the emotions, on the healing, on preparing them, which I think is so important, because when you do have a clear picture of what needs to happen, how it's going to happen, in what timeline it's going to happen, you can start focusing more on your own healing, right?
yes,
And it also sounds like you help them with that too. Open their eyes to what's the work that they need to do for themselves right now, so that they could be steady, get out of the chaos, be there for their children as well, and move through it. I want to talk about the two different kind of, and I know you probably have other clients as well, who are thinking of how do I prepare to eventually get married, right? So there's like really three different types of, which I love. I think there's so much excitement there, right? For you as a practitioner to support, women who are planning on getting married and want to do it in the right way, want to set up their lives and their relationship from a place of strength and a place of trust, so that, you know, they get off on the right foot and they don't have that, gray space, right? So let's go one by one, and maybe you can tell us what kind of the first step is when you work with someone. So let's say you're working with someone who is engaged, or about to be engaged, and they know that they're going to be going through the process of getting married. What's kind of the first and or the most important thing that you want them to think about and or focus on?
We when it's usually when they come to me before the marriage or engaged, or there is I is prenuptials,
Mm,
because now that's a very common thing.
yes, very common thing.
Um,
Yeah.
so they come to me, can I review their prenuptials
Okay.
or their
Or
agreements?
talk about it, right? Even
Talk
just
about
have
it,
a
what's
like,
important. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
And so I do a lot of that. As far as the coaching side, it's trying to get them whatever concerns they're having.
Yeah.
What do you guys have in common? You go through that. What issues are you having?
Yeah.
Why are you, what's worrying you?
Right.
What,
Yeah.
what issues should we discuss? Religion, if you're in this,
Right.
finances. So I give them that, I help them go through that.
Okay.
But the legal side has usually been mostly, hey, I'm getting
Prenups.
married, I have this
Mhm.
prenup. Can
Which is
you,
important, which is so important because the way that I think most of us were raised, like our parents never thought
yeah,
it probably didn't even exist. I don't know if
it
if it
did, but
existed. There was no such thing. But now it is commonplace, and when two individuals who have their own careers, have their own incomes, have their own properties, assets, it is an important conversation because it really just prevents future issues in the marriage that can become emotional issues, right?
right. And I
Yeah,
think, I think that back in when we were younger,
yeah,
they did exist, but I think it was more like, again, you don't talk about finances, women's take
right.
home. It was a little bit different, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, Now I think people are getting married later.
yeah,
So now they generally have their careers.
yeah.
So get an apartment or a house that they
Right.
already have, and they've already built that kind of life.
Mhm.
So I think it's become very normal,
Yeah,
just at least determine what they want to be separate,
yeah,
at least up until then. And then, so there are different sorts of ways they agree to different things, but I
yeah.
do help them with that as well.
Okay, perfect. Now let's talk about the woman who um is getting a divorce. Okay. In your mind, she's on fire, she's in chaos, whether it was her that is wanting it or the spouse, I can imagine it's still, just
Yeah.
as critical. What what is the first thing that you want her to start thinking about or to do?
Well, the first thing we talk about is she needs information, and whether
Okay.
what are the finances of the house?
Okay.
What do they own? What's the kids, the schools, like just every single
So
thing.
helping her to get it all down in
Helping her
writing.
put all her expenses, all their expenses, list them, right?
Right,
So that they're able to see where she's at, you need a real picture you need a great financial picture of her life, right?
right,
Is what I tell her. So that she knows, because at the end of the day, if they think they're making, oh, he makes $1 million, and the
right.
reality, when you look at sometimes the documents, you're like, no, he doesn't. So
Mm,
you need to come down to a very realistic number.
yeah,
What are the expenses? What are these? And that's what we work through.
yeah,
So we sit down and we go through all their finances, everything, the house, if they have a house or whatever. And so we look at a big picture of her life, of their life.
okay,
And then kind of from there, we start saying, because sometimes someone will be like, and I always say this, I want to keep the house.
right,
You need to know whether you're able to afford the house later, right?
correct,
And he may want to keep the house, and it's the same scenario.
right,
Or you're better off keeping something else. So it just depends on case by case. So
Yeah.
we look at the whole financial picture. We're able to sit down, um, and then we go over with her, guiding her, helping her strategize with what she ultimately wants.
What she ultimately wants, right?
Yes.
Creating a solid picture so that there's no
A
question
realistic
about that.
picture for
A
her.
realistic picture to start from, because I'm sure, then there's conversation, then there's negotiation, but that's the first step. Okay. And then, what about a woman who wants to strengthen her marriage? Maybe her marriage is not solid. She's concerned that it's heading in a not so good space, and wants to really prevent divorce. What's the first thing you work on?
Well, that goes straight to the coaching.
Okay.
And I coach her on where, what the issue is, right?
Okay.
Then a lot of times and I'll say that about myself as too, we think, oh, it's this issue, but we don't realize until somebody else tells us, how about, they ask us that one question that we're
Right.
like, oh yeah, yeah, I guess
Maybe that's
my
the deeper
perspective
issue.
is wrong. Oops, or I could be doing this. So I try to do that with the coaching,
Right.
and we
Help
work
them
out
to see the bigger picture
or
and
what's really going on. We dig into scenarios that they're going
right.
through. We go through it and what are the concerns and how can we work on it? How can we approach it this way?
Yeah.
Maybe the communication's not right. Maybe, they've been together for a long time and the relationship's in the same. So
Right.
maybe, it depends on what it is. I coach my client into seeing ways to actually realize what's going on and, you know, re reignite the
Reignite.
marriage,
Yeah.
whatever they need. If they actually need to, if they need to go to couples therapy, then
Right.
I recommend a therapist for them. If
Okay.
she needs a therapist, I then recommend that. But
You have a
a lot
whole
of the time,
army of partners, really,
yes,
that
yes,
you recommend to help them with whatever specific issues that they need to work on outside of what
yes.
you're doing.
And they're highly trusted and people that
Right.
I think, and I give them a couple names from within the people that I know so that they're able to make, you know,
Yeah.
choose a person they feel more comfortable with if it's that scenario. But honestly, I love it because I feel like I want to be the person that you call because you're in this situation, the stress of whatever of the three scenarios, and you're going to get good people, a good team, you're going to get quality
Yeah.
advice, and
Hmm.
someone that's in your court, choosing your
Yes.
corner. I'm
Yes.
holding their hand. I want them to get through this process
Yeah.
as best they can because it is a process and it's going to hurt. Um, and have someone to rely on and someone that they can trust, and it's not going to cost them a bazillion dollars at the end of the day,
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Yeah, I really do think that that's the most important thing is having someone in your corner who's not your mom, who's not your dad, who's not your
yes,
sister, who's not your best friend. Um, and they're wonderful, right? Because you had your support team, I had my support team of friends and family, but sometimes you need someone else
yes,
who is truly there
object,
with, yeah, yeah, neutral, no agenda. Yes, they love you, they feel for you, but there's a separation, right?
yes,
There's a
yes,
separation there, and having someone from beginning to end, right? Because with coaching, I've been a coach for, gosh, over 20 years, and especially in scenarios like this where you just want it to be over, you know, when you're the one who needs the coaching, it's easy to think that I can change overnight. But the fact of the matter is that change takes time. And it takes a lot of awareness, and not just awareness, but here's tiny step number one.
yeah,
And after you get used to tiny step number one and you can celebrate it, let's move on to tiny step number two, right? Because we're building new ways of thinking, new belief systems, we're building new habits, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time to get to a place where we can actually look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I'm a different person. I'm not who I was then. And I needed that person in my corner to really support me and get me through, all of the changes that came with this big transformation.
which I'm sure you've seen that with your clients in coaching. It is so fulfilling for me when you actually, when you get that look from them, from the
Yeah.
client, and they're like, thank you so much,
Yeah.
because it is such a hard process and it's step by step, like you said, I agree. It's very,
Yeah.
but it's nice to have that objective person
Yes.
because you mentioned like your parents and your friends, they also have their, especially in divorces, they have their perception, what they viewed all along. They love that person or hate that person, right? So it's not, that's noise. It's good. They love you, but you really need to work through these things by yourself. So a coach comes in and really, I think, is able
Yeah.
to really settle you, be in your corner, and walk
Yeah.
you through it.
And listen and understand. And that's the hard part. I think we all know that a lot of times what we see, we look at relationships, we see the Instagram photos, we see the European trips, we have this idea that it's a perfect marriage, and no one, not even your mom, not even your dad, not even your best friend, truly know what's happening in your marriage, in your home day after day after day. And because there's a negative connotation for divorce, there's also a negative connotation to actually sharing, what's truly happening for me, what's
Right.
truly happening for my, for my spouse and for my children. And so yeah, more than ever, having that neutrality is really supportive. If not, you spend all of your time having to explain what has happened all this time to actually get people to listen to you, to
I
truly
know.
understand what you're going through. It's very challenging. I wonder if you have like a favorite client story, of course, protecting their privacy, but like an outcome that you really just was so special for you, that lit you up, that um it's those days where we come home and we're like, my gosh, I'm so grateful that I do this work, you know?
Well, just the other day, I met with one of my clients and I'm telling you, and this was funny enough, it's not divorce. She's
Right,
not divorced. And it's just going and opening their eyes on, and it was funny because it was opening their eyes on, okay, what could we be doing? The financial planning and all of that.
right,
And it actually, they mentioned something which, oh, because of what we've done, my daughter, who's older, 16, 17, she's benefiting because now I'm using these things with her.
wow,
So that was a really big great moment for me because I said, you know what? Not only is this helping, my client, but it's flowing onto their children,
right,
which are in their teens,
absolutely,
So that part I love. And as far as my divorce clients, you know what? When they're able to finalize their divorce, and you know that you've been there through the process with them and you've been able to, in this particular one that I'm thinking, they have children, so having help the mom can be
right,
somewhat, emotionally sane
yes,
through this process. And actually that just also speaks to the child, right? To the
right,
children,
yes,
because if the mom is kind of in a better headspace,
steady and grounded,
and then the
yes,
divorce, you kind of can help them through the process, which means it's less adversarial,
right,
right? In this particular case, so the children came out winning, she came out winning, and the spouse came out winning, the ex-spouse. So
amazing,
that was all positive for me, and that is why I love what I'm doing, Monique.
yeah, I
It's
love that.
it's so fulfilling.
You know, I think it's true when they say happy mom, happy home.
That's true.
Especially for those moms, because I know it's not true today for every mom and for every dad. And I love that. I've had so many incredible men on this podcast because,
Mhm.
these are men who are kind of defying the traditional roles of men and are vulnerable and are, really showing up for their families and wearing that hat. But for those women who truly are kind of like the leader of the kids and the family and all the family
Right.
activities, happy mom, happy life, people. Like
Yes.
we need that. We need that. And it does rub off on the children. I know that it was for me one of the it was so hard. I don't know that anybody goes through a divorce that isn't hard, on everybody involved, but I know that at least I can say that the way that I managed it for myself and for my children, that I know that they're proud of that. I know they're proud of me for the way that I handled it, and I know that they've learned from it, right? And I'm still learning from them and what and how they went through it and what their
Yes,
perspective was. What did they learn from it? You know, sometimes they'll say things to me that I just never imagined that they were thinking or feeling. And so it's so important to, when it's appropriate and at a certain age, involve the children in having that dialogue about, you know, how
how they
was
feel.
this for you? How was this for you? And what do you need, right?
I think that's very important.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit to, you know, because every woman that I interview in some way, shape, or form is, you know, an executive, an entrepreneur, has gone from corporate to having their own business, um, and so for you, you had your own. Did you have your own practice, or were you with a practice before you actually niched to what you're doing now?
Oh, I was working for myself. I was
Okay.
doing contract work, so I did
Okay.
mostly a lot of real estate and things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
So it and making that switch is often very difficult, you know, because we go through our own kind of questions,
well,
you know,
yes.
right? This is who I've been. This is how people see me. This is my identity. How did you work on
Well, what
getting
I
to
love
a
about
place?
this,
Yeah,
yeah, what I love about, and what actually kind of gave me the shift was because I did have all this knowledge on the real estate and the transactional world
right.
and on the trust and the, so it kind of almost like I have all this knowledge that I can just shift over to this practice and
Yes.
really feel like I can give people, women,
Hmm.
or my clients, like this global view on everything. Like
Right.
because I wasn't only doing family law,
Right.
right?
Right.
I wasn't doing family law. So
Yeah.
I transported all of this knowledge, and which is such, everything is related, right? The
Yeah.
real estate, the trust, the future, the retirement,
Absolutely.
all of it, probate, so it's kind of, life insurance, like anything. So it's kind of great to be able to
Yeah.
provide
Yeah.
that view. So the shift to me was kind of like almost,
Seamless. You were ready. You were just
yes,
ready.
in a weird way, I was ready for it.
Yeah. It
So
wasn't like you were doing something completely new. You had leverage, right? You had all
yeah,
this knowledge and wisdom and experience. But it sounds to me like it was really your fierce moment going through this yourself that made you realize that what was going to make it really meaningful for you, your career moving forward, was actually working with the women, supporting them emotionally, and
right,
helping them get to a better place.
yes.
Yeah, how beautiful. Very, very purpose driven, very mission driven. I love it. Um, so we all, you know, I always like to ask about mental, emotional, physical self-care and how important it is for women business owners, especially because, you know, if you're anything like me, type A, I can work myself into the ground every day because I love my work and I can just work and work and work and work.
Right.
But we can burn out quickly. You know, we lose priority, a focus of our priorities. Our relationships start to, you know, maybe not, they're not as healthy as they could be. You know, what have you found? Um, and let's talk about the divorce really quickly. Like while you were in the divorce, what did you do to help you stay sane, to help you feel healthy, to help you have clarity of mind? What supported
So
you?
important. Self-care has been so important. I personally would run, love to run. So I
Okay.
go to the gym every day, every
Okay.
morning, whether I felt like getting out of the bed or not.
You made yourself.
That was my sane moment, was to
Okay.
let out all that
Anxiety.
endorphins, everything, anxiety, yes. And the days that I didn't go, you can tell. My kids at 3:30 were like, "You didn't go to the gym today, did you?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Oh God, please go." So that was what kept me sane, honestly. And taking care of yourself, like
Yeah.
breathing, really listening to myself and what I needed at that moment. The
Hmm.
days that I was too overwhelmed,
Yeah.
I didn't make myself outperform, just
Right.
relax and stop and sleep in if I needed to, or take a walk around the block,
Listening
or
to your body. Yeah.
yes, I think that's so important. And it's so important and so overlooked with a lot of my clients, right?
Yeah.
So in the coaching, that's one thing that I do ask them as well. That's a very like self-care is so important, even if
Yeah.
it's walk around the block, 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah, and that's it. I often tell my clients you don't have to have like this rock star 3 hour morning
No,
ritual. I do because I want to.
I do too. And I
I wake
did
up
back
at the
then
crack of
and I
dawn
never
and
stopped.
I get it all done. But honestly, if we can,
But if
and
there's,
what
but Monique,
listening out
there's a
there.
day that you feel, I'm sure you do this when
Yeah,
there's a day that you feel like I need to do nothing today.
yeah,
Whatever, because my mind is, if you don't listen to your body, it will do it for you. And
yeah,
it's true. Some days you're like wiped out, exhausted, and if you kind of listen to your body and you take care of yourself, I think, and take care of yourself in the sense of the exercise, the
right.
sit outside, sit in
Sit
a park,
outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight.
read for 10 minutes of something that's
Yeah,
fun, mindless, if that's what you want to do, or just breathe, right? The breathing techniques so there's a lot to do, and I
yeah,
think it's so important. So yes, I
awesome.
did. I worked out every single day.
I love
Throughout,
it.
I still do it, but I did it before my divorce, and I needed it so much during my divorce.
So is that the one thing you can still say today that you just can't live without as far as self-care is the exercise?
Yes,
Yeah.
that for sure.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Amazing. Um,
And
okay,
I, and
so
I'll also mention hanging out or having dinner or meeting my friends for
your friends.
drinks or dinner, whatever, cocktail.
Yes.
That's still today. I still do that
Yes.
today, and I did that throughout the divorce,
Yeah. So
So,
important. I think a lot of us forget that having fun is a part of life.
or just
And
being in community, not
yes,
even
being in
having fun because
community.
you're depressed inside and your
Yes.
soul is on the floor, and you're like,
Yeah.
you know what, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna sit there, and even if you're so sad,
Yeah.
that sitting with your friends and talking and knowing they're there for you, even though you're not talking about your issues, right? Because
Yeah.
that's how I am, or I was. It was just nice being in my community,
Yeah.
being with my girlfriends. It didn't matter. It was a
Right.
moment out, and it was just, let's talk about the kids or let's talk about
Just
whatever,
be together. Hmm.
That was what keeps you sane. Kept
Absolutely. I'm
Still
with you.
keeps me sane.
Still keeps you sane. Yes. So, sometimes I talk about astrology. Um, and I remember you and I had lunch and you were talking to me about the shift in your business. And I can't remember if that was 2023 or 2024. Um, but I'm assuming that maybe around 2022, well, let's see, 2024, 2023. Yeah, like 2022, 2023 is when you were really like thinking about and planning for this
So
shift. Is that when it
yeah,
happened?
I think it was 2023 when we had
Yeah.
lunch. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a growth year for your business, by the way. Like um last year was a growth year. This year we call it a flow year, but it's continued success, it's continued growth, right? So I always tell people that when you're in a flow year, keep doing what you've been doing, right? Like don't get off path. Sometimes we can, in this year, we could feel a little indecisive, like maybe just something shows up that wants to, move your attention over here. But in
Uh-huh.
order to keep feeling the success and growing your business, you want to keep doing what you've been doing, right? Leveraging the successes you've been having. And it's so beautiful because this year is really like the archetype of the coach and the guide, right? So the
Oh,
fact that
okay.
that is what you do, right? As long as you keep doing that, just showing up as the coach and the guide, your business is gonna soar this
Oh, I
year.
love that.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and your archetypes, you have the archetype of the dreamer. I don't know if that resonates for you. The dreamer is someone who needs freedom. They need kind of like um to not have so much rigidity, right? Where, being your own boss is really important, right? So it's no surprise that you've actually been your own boss for quite some time. But they can also be someone who is deeply spiritual, whether they share it with others or not, right? It's something that is important to them, and they can be really creative and artistic. And I'm wondering if that shows up for you. Has that shown up for you in your life? Like, do you consider yourself a creative person?
I am,
Innovative,
pardon?
creative, innovative,
I
lots of
think
great ideas.
I do have lots of great ideas, but I don't carry them out all the time. But yes, a little, yeah, it does. Just
Yeah.
not, I'm definitely not an artist. I cannot draw anything. So that creative part of space is gone.
Space up here.
Yes. But yeah, that's fine. That's interesting.
Yeah, the most important thing for someone with your archetype as the dreamer is really freedom and flow. Like to just
Uh-huh.
to be able to manage your life the way you want it, right?
Yeah.
And to be very open to like learning and growing, right? Always developing, always reading, always learning new things. Like that's
Yes.
yeah.
That's totally me.
Yeah, absolutely. So like now in your face, different. In the face, you've got warrior archetype and you've got like I want to call it just the fire, right? You've got wood and fire. What does that mean? That means that you are you really enjoy your work. Like you're here to make things happen, right? Like get things done, move things forward, which I'm sure helps you to be a super successful, businesswoman. But the dimples give you that fire. So friendships, connections, like heart to heart connections, really important, And one thing that I'm always fascinated by, it happens with so many of my clients, not everybody, but the fact that you are a Libra and believe it or not, a lot of Libras end up going into law, because this
Mm.
idea of harmony and balance, right? And in astrology, it rules the seventh house of relationships, right? And you're focusing on relationships and kind of harmonizing and
Right.
so a lot of synergies there with the astrology. So I always like to look at that and see how it shows up when I'm talking to my guests. Um, but any final words for any woman out there who um, really needs support but is hesitant? What would you say to them?
I would say to reach out. I do a 30-minute free consultation
Okay,
and, to see if, I can help them. And if we can help them, if they feel like we're a good match on what I offer. And so they can call my office or send me an email through my website,
okay.
which is www.thedivorcebroker.com.
Thedivorcebroker.com.
Yeah, or
Okay,
Instagram, it's Divorce Broker Official.
okay.
So yeah, they can reach out to me and I
Excellent.
and I do the free consult to see if we're a good match and to see if I can help them because sometimes by what they tell me and the situation they're in, maybe I'm not the right person for them. But
Right.
generally, I do. You were mentioning creative, Monique. It's funny because this my business right now is actually bringing two of my worlds together, which is the
Mm,
legal portion in the background and the coaching part,
yeah,
which are actually they're very separate.
yeah.
Um, but it's kind of neat because it's
It's
bringing them in together and
absolutely.
it's really a different view.
Hmm.
So maybe that's where the creativity is coming from.
Absolutely, absolutely. Every person with a dreamer archetype, I have a dreamer archetype too. And we're a little bit different, right? You actually have it quite a bit. And I have a few other archetypes kind of woven in, but it shows up differently for everybody, right? Some people are very they're here to learn and create in their mind, right? And it happens through learning, through studying, through reading, journaling, personal things, right? They like to have their own time.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, for themselves, a lot of, but I would say for other archetypes, it's the spirituality. It's the it's the artistry, right? So I was a dancer all my life, and for me, the teaching spirituality, learning spirituality, being a spiritual mentor to others is really where it sits for me, right? So it shows up differently for everybody, but really, bottom line, anybody with that archetype, they need their flow and they need their freedom. They're always going to be better on their own, more independent, especially when it comes to a career, so that they have the freedom to keep learning, to keep innovating, to keep being creative in their own
I keep
way.
learning. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I see that.
So, all right. So you heard it. You know who to go to if you are working on a relationship, you're in a divorce and need support, you're thinking about getting married and want to prepare for that. reach out to Michelle so she can give you a free consultation to see if it's a good fit. I'm going to put all of her information in the show notes. And thank you for joining us today. We hope that this episode spoke to many of you, that it maybe affirmed where you are today, and hopefully affirmed that maybe you need some extra support and some coaching in your life. So reach out, and we will see you next time on the Fierce and Flowing podcast.